Alright guys, Sean here, and today we're going to talk about One Piece Chapter 939. Spoiler warning for those who haven't read the chapter yet. So Oda did try to sell Kuromusaki as Hiyori in this chapter, but the problem I had with that was we're actually lacking 13 years of Hiyori's past, if indeed Hiyori is Kuromusaki, and her interactions with Kyoshiro. It appears she was saved by Kawamatsu the same night when Toko made the backup plan and sent Momo to the future. She was saved by Kawamatsu and taken care of for 7 years, after which Kawamatsu got separated from her, and for the last 13 years basically no info was given about her. Still, a lot of people predicted that it could be Otoko who is Hiyori and Kuromusaki is acting as her retainer, but the problem I had with that is revealed in this chapter, and that is the fact that Hiyori or Kuromusaki reveals that Toko is one of the few friends she has told the secret. Few means that there's more than one, so I don't believe that there are other people who are in link with this and know about her identity, if indeed she is Hiyori. So this one is in itself quite interesting, and she does refer to Kawamatsu as a Kappa, so it makes a lot of sense for people predicting that he could be an actual Kappa, but this route could also mean that Kawamatsu is an Ota Mink, which would prompt me to believe that there is a possibility for him to be an Ota Mink who ate a mythical zone Kappa, which isn't far-fetched since we've seen that Orochi ate the snake fruit mythical zone model Yamata no Orochi, which makes a lot of sense. So I wouldn't be surprised if Oda goes for that route itself. Now, enough talk between Kuromusaki and Zoro. The last thing I'd like to point out was the fact that Zoro did give her intel on the fact that Momo's alive, and he's one of the recruitments Momo has brought to help aid the ousting of Kaido and the Shogun from Wano, as well as the opening of the borders. Still, Denjiro is lacking, and we do know that Ashura Doji has come in contact with Kinemon. The other part of the chapter I found quite interesting was the fact that most of the hotshots who were introduced when the Kozuki members were sharing the cards to their allies have almost all been captured, and it is under the instructions of Fukurokuju. He was questioned as to why they were captured, but he never actually gave us intel as to who leaked the information. But to be honest, I think it must have been an insider job, because it's kind of weird for him to say that Orochi saw the card and was able to, interpret the card, which makes no sense to me. I believe that an insider must have leaked the info that these cards were going around, and those with the crescent moon on their legs should be captured and locked up. So this in itself is quite disadvantageous for the Straws as well as the Kozuki clan allies, because they actually need a lot of men to fight against Kaido and the Shogun, and what this has done has really been detrimental to their final goal, since most of the men who are willing to put their lives on the line are now behind bars. So this in itself is really problematic. Still, Ashura Doji, who's worth 100 men, doesn't seem to have been captured. Kawamatsu is in Udon prison and obviously will escape sometime soon, and Denjiro has yet to be shown. So this actually opened up the opportunity for Denjiro to show up and kind of free these guys. We move on to Udon prison, and I was amazed by the way Luffy was using future sight observation haki. It seemed much more Katakuri like and fluid, so it must mean that Luffy has mastered this observation haki, yet he hasn't mastered the advanced skill he was trying to learn, and many times he stopped before his opponents and discovered he was just doing regular hardening, but yet his observation haki abilities were necessary because he helped Grandpa Hyou stay alive and follow suit. So this in itself proved really interesting. Grandpa Hyou, by the way, was the shocker in this chapter because his movements were kind of fluid and showed us that this guy, although he is an Ogiza, still is capable of doing what needs to be done when it's necessary. Not only did he escape most of the attacks thanks to Luffy's directives, but he ended up teaching Luffy indirectly how to use the technique. He actually called the technique Guken. It was a technique learned by swordsmen that enabled them to project their haki onto their blades, and this ability enabled them to cut anything, even steel. And when the technique was withdrawn from their blades, it made it so blunt that even paper could not be cut. This is really similar to what Zoro displayed when he was fighting Mr. One back in the Alabasta arc. It is similar to the voice of all things, but it is not the voice of all things. Still, having Zoro display that type of ability way back in Alabasta just shows us how deep Oda has thought about certain abilities and skills in One Piece. This also means that Zoro was probably the first Straw Hat to ever have awakened armament haki and advanced armament haki at that. That is really impressive, and I expect Zoro at the very least to display that ability in this arc. Other than that, I found it kind of disturbing that Queen is just there eating the Oshira Yuki. Still, it could be that he isn't worried about Luffy in the least if he also possesses advanced observation and armament haki, so he wouldn't be worried if Luffy learns about it, since Queen I do not think Luffy is capable of beating at this point. Katakuri was cool, but Katakuri was much more of a distance type fighter, and it was only because Luffy pushed him to his limit that he actually fought close combat. But when it comes to someone as strong as Queen, let me not say strong because it would be like degrading to Katakuri, but to be honest, I think that because Queen is a zone type user, or at the very least out there to believe that he is, as well as Jack and King, it is really difficult for these guys to be beaten by the likes of Luffy. That's why Oda is really going and pushing hard for the advanced armament haki skill, because these guys are pretty much masters at close quarters combat. And one important thing about zones is that they can take a lot of hits. Luffy is resistant, he can take a lot of hits, but these guys would be on a whole different level simply because the added advantage of their devil fruit enables them to be much more resilient and strong. So this would mean that it will take a lot of hits, a lot to knock them out. That's why I believe Oda is pushing for the advanced armament haki skill, so that with these two combined, Luffy could actually damage and harm them a lot. So thanks to Pa Hyou, I believe Luffy will catch up easily, and from there he could at the very least crack Kaido's skills as he stated. But this was kind of funny because it might mean that Oda is trying to slightly foreshadow that Kaido's invulnerability and inability to die has to do with his dragon skills. This could also push slightly the theory that Kaido is an actual dragon who ate an oni fruit. So yeah, this chapter was in itself really interesting. I'm really willing to bet my hands on the fact that the traitor is a samurai, and probably one we know. I don't think Yasuo is the one who was the traitor, but I believe someone we actually are close to. I'll talk about that in a separate video. Let me know your thoughts about this chapter. Subscribe if you haven't already to become part of the Blizzard Squad. As usual, I'm your host Sean, and this is goodbye.